Let's do it. I think what's happening right now is a variation of what I had planned. I don't think in many aspects of it I expected it to end up being as big as it is, or as popular as it is. When I competed, I wanted to leave happy. I wanted to leave with a love for the sport still. I didn't want to ride that bus till the wheels fell off and build up the resentment. So I wanted to leave when times were still good, and then I knew I wanted to coach or be a mentor in some capacity. I think the part that I enjoy the most with whatever you want to call it, whether it's coaching, guidance, just a conversation, I always try to be the person that I wish I had when I was going through something tough. A lot of times the tough situation isn't the tough part, it's the uncertainty, it's the not knowing how, why, or what, that can drive a lot of fear. So even if I can just be the calming voice, I'm far enough away from the situation that my emotions aren't as strong about it. So if I can be the calming voice to an athlete and be like, hey, you're doing a great job, just keep doing what you're doing, you're going down the right path, you'll get there soon. Even if I can just be the person to encourage the athletes and use my past experiences of like, hey, when I was dealing with this, I tried X, Y, and Z. Z ended up working the best. Let's see what works on you.
Are you ready for this? Man, Matt is undeniably a legend in the sport, right? He won 5 times. There's nobody else on the male side that's won 5 times. And so he's parlayed all of that experience and the way that he went about winning into this brand that he created, HWPO Training. Because if you look at the way that he trained, like, he was diligent, there was always an end goal, there was always something that he was working towards, and he tried to do it in a way that he would look at what others did, take what worked from them, and then build this kind of composite of something that worked for him, but also what he kind of saw were best practices across the board. And he's taken the same approach to business. He's constantly learning and reading and reaching out to mentors and getting perspective, and then bringing that back over to this brand in the way that we do business and the way that we train athletes, which is another big part of this.
That good right here?
Yeah, perfect.
What do you got for me? I knew that there was something special with Matt the day I laid eyes on him. In 2013, I attended the CrossFit Regionals at Reebok, and I watched him do the first workout, which was an overhead squat for a max 3 rep, and then went right into 30 burpee muscle ups for a time. And just the way he went about how he competed, not just what he put up for numbers, just showed me something special. I remember sitting in the seats, watching him overhead squat, sit in the bottom of his overhead squat, look at his judge and ask for confirmation that he was low enough. And I remember turning to one of my good friends and saying, this kid's gonna be really good at this. From that point forward, getting to know Matt, it was then easy to know that there was greatness inside of him. Throughout Matt's career, he had choices to make. There are so many examples of where he chose harder, and he chose to run into fear, doubt, insecurity, things that he wasn't good at. In 2015 is one of the most pivotal moments when he finished second at the games, after sort of being anointed the next, great champion. Matt had a pivotal choice at that point to continue to do things the way he was and maybe have decent results, or pursue greatness.
Taking one step backward, after the 2015 games, there was a lot of, I guess, lack of a better term, soul searching, because it was very confusing to me, because in 2014 I got second place, 2015 I got second place. Exact same end results, but drastically different emotions tied to each finish. 2014, I couldn't have been happier. I was over the moon. 2015, I was questioning, why am I doing this? Do I want to do it again? Where did it go wrong? Why do I hate this so much, like these results? It ended up being a day of, I went into my office, like left the phone, left the computer out, and just sat there with a pen and paper for probably about 3 or 4 hours and just asked myself questions like a 2-year-old, It's like, I didn't like the results from 2015. Why? Because I got second. Why? could cut corners, why? And, you know, just kept asking me why until it got down to the root. It was the same results as last year, and I was happy last year, so why am I not happy? And I realized that, you know, the emotions tied to your finish have very little to do with the actual finish, but it's how proud am I of that finish. I remember after the 2015 games, and once a little bit of time passed, sitting down with a notebook, stripped away anyone else's opinion, anyone else's emotions, and was just like 100% selfish, because I am in control of my happiness. For anyone around me to be happy, I need to be happy first so that I can be happy for them. And there was a couple lines. It was one sheet of paper with probably about 15 lines on it, and I taped it up next to my bed. So, you know, the first thing I saw when my eyes were open was that sheet, and it was one sheet filled up, and I would force myself to read every line. And one of the biggest ones was I realized that if I'm proud of my results, other people will be proud of my results. You know, all my loved ones, the people that are close to me. And so that's what I focused on, is instead of basing my emotions on my finish and how I did compared to other people, I wanted to base my emotions on how I compare to myself. And so that's where the slogan, you know, make yourself proud. That was one of the lines on the sheet of paper. And then, you know, after a year of reading that, Sammy got it printed in like this big poster, and she made it look very nice. But one of the things was, you know, make yourself proud. You know, if you're proud of your results, the people you love will be proud of you, but it doesn't work the other way.
In 2015, he was devastated at his results, and not because of finishing second and what that meant to him, but what that meant to everybody around him that put their time and effort in. There was a lot of apologies to me and my time, and you know what I had put forth. He was embarrassed because he expected and expects everybody to be at their best, and he didn't feel like he was his. That always has stuck with me because it's defined his career. He's never let that happen again.
And then, you know, I focused on that, making myself proud, really focusing on my performance, not compared to others. And then, you know, I won in 2016, set the record margin for the victory, and just went, okay, let's double down on it again. And I just kept doubling down, doubling down, doubling down.
Let's get it. In 2017, I watched the 2017 documentary, and I mean, that was it. I was like, dude, who is this dude? This dude's dominant. I mean, he wins everything, and people love him. So I think that was my first time I ever saw him. I just got into CrossFit in 2017, yeah. So you see this guy, and he's like, I think that was his second year winning, and I mean, he's dominating everybody, and so it's just cool to watch.
Okay, I'm ready. Me and Matt used to train together 2014, 15, 16, 17, and those times were like incredible. So I am extremely competitive, and I just thoroughly enjoy a good competition. And that competitiveness does not always get matched. But with Matt, like, he's always really, like, willing to rise to the occasion. So there's so, like, we were like siblings. Like, there were times we could not stand each other, but always loved each other. And there was just always this like uprising of a standard that we would push each other. I have a gazillions of memories like that with Matt. To see that him be so involved, and to him to start coaching Mel, I was like, I started feeling that, like, when I was at the games and like seeing him coach her, I was sitting with like Sammy and Amy, and I felt this, like, jealousy might be the wrong word, but like I wanted to be doing what they were doing. And after leaving the games, I said to Brooks, I was like, I'm gonna ask Matt to be my coach.
I said it during my competition career, as one of my biggest points of pride was that I had the same people on either side of me for the picture after the games every year. Step off the podium, and I would get a picture with Sammy on my left, O'Keefe on my right, and it was the same every year. The photos that will get hung in my office are the photos after the podium of the people I was with the people that were there for me through the good times, through the bad times.
The other memory is on repeat for 5 years, and it was how proud he was every moment that he found out he won, because he knew that he had done everything possible to get to that point, and everybody around him had. The gratitude and pride he had in that result for himself and all of us are 5 memories that I don't think I'll ever be able to top in my life. He worked so hard for those moments, and what you all saw externally was the pure joy of, I worked my ass off for this, I did this.
Like, what does it mean to you and to like the rest of the people?
I feel like it just means to me and to the people like anything is possible. I mean, he achieved a lot of greatness in his time, and he mapped out what greatness looks like in the sport, and he just given us a roadmap, you know, like a lot of people, whether you're on the CrossFit Games as a competitor and you're, you know, trying to be a champion, or you're just a regular gym goer, he's mapped out in great detail what it means to be great. I always remind myself, like, it's not about results necessarily to me. Yeah, of course I want the results, but that's not necessarily what I train for. I train to show up, and I train to work hard just because that's who I am. Like, that's my character. I'm a hard worker. It's easy to attach results to your character or your personality, and if you attach those things to your identity, then it's never gonna be satisfying, because you're never gonna reach the approval of others. You're never gonna, you know, satisfy everybody. And at the end of the day, it's not about results that make you happy and give you joy. It's about the journey to those things. And so I feel like just making yourself proud and going out there and giving your best, and living with it and being proud of that. And that's Matt's legacy.
So one of the coolest things about Matt is that nothing has ever been handed to him. And he has worked for everything, and he has worked so hard, and he's worked so diligently and so intelligently. And that is the coolest thing that, like, for my kids, I want my kids to like follow his career, to see what he did, to like, okay, like, this is what he did. And it's not easy, but if you want to accomplish something, if you can do it, so can you. And like, that's something that I always like try to look towards, that this might sound bad, but like, there's nothing like special about him. He's not on another level. He just works his ass off for things. And that is so like, that pushes me and that motivates me. And still to this day, so one of the coolest things, I knew he did that in his career. And then after his career, to see how hard he works on HWPO and all of you guys. That's been one of the things I was like, holy shit. Like, he took what he did in his career and now he's applying that to business, which is so cool to see. It's like, oh, he can't turn it off. It's just who he is.
I saw you on the stands. You were so proud of your athletes.
Seeing Mal and Jay last year at the games have these moments that I'm like, I've lived those moments, and I know for you, you will remember that moment on your deathbed. You'll be proud of that moment for the rest of your life. So because I've done it, because I've walked down that path, I can kind of see when those moments are happening for them. It has about zero to do with placement. You know, at semifinals this last year, I was coaching Rafa, and one of the proudest moments of my coaching career was Rafa on event 1 took second place. And you know, he's coming in, like, I remember when we first started working with him, he asked me directly, he's like, why are you working with me? Like I'm not at that caliber that Jayson and Mal are at, or, you know, whatever it is. And I was like, I don't care about that. Like, I don't care if you move past semifinals. Like, you want it, you're hungry. I feel like my words aren't being wasted, you know? I'm providing help for somebody that couldn't get this help otherwise. That's the best feeling. Love just seeing them kind of surprise themselves, be proud of themselves, and, you know, whether they use that moment in CrossFit, or hopefully if they do something else, you know, little bits of, they can take something from their experience here and apply it forward.
All Matt asks of everybody that comes here to train is that they give 100% effort every day, and he will give that back. That's how he went about his training, and that's what he asked of coaches that coached him. And everybody here buys into that. You know, how does that contribute to our legacy? They bring to life now today what Matt did through his athletic career. How they compete, you know, how they apply to their training, to their work, has taken on those same characteristics that Matt did. We are insanely proud of everything that they do, and it has nothing to do with where they place on the leaderboard. Those guys know going into every workout, every training session, if they work hard and they've shown up and they're just proud of the effort that they put in, the rest will take care of itself. That's how Matt went about his career, and that's how all of them have learned from him to go about theirs. I think it's really important that we celebrate Matt's legacy, and it should live on. It's a shining example of who we are today at HWPO Training, and it's a great inspiration for people who aspire to be like him or are inspired to train like him and achieve greatness like him. We really need to and want to every year spend a lot of time talking about how great he was on the floor. Today, he's just as good off the floor. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to watch that play out and him apply the same hard work, determination, and grit to how he coaches and runs his business with all of us.
Matt's legacy is important in the sport because, one, he did some things differently than we saw in the past. He came into the sport when the sport was pretty young. He was pretty young, but there was this very clear path that people would go. They'd get into the sport, they'd make the games, they'd get a certain set of sponsors, they'd kind of do a very similar thing, and Matt was the first one to do something a bit different. And so he was a trailblazer in that regard, which I think opened the window for A, a lot of sponsors, different sponsors to come into the space, and B, athletes to kind of create their own little ecosystem around them that was theirs, and it wasn't necessarily what had already existed. So I think he was one of the first people to open the door for folks to do something different in the sport, and that made the sport bigger overall. And then on the other side, I think anytime you have somebody who's really, truly great at something, and you look at some people like Michael Jordan, Lindsey Vonn, those type of people might not aspire to be winning the CrossFit Games 5 times if they're just going to their regular gym, but having somebody to look at like that and maybe emulating some of their habits or garnering any amount of motivation from them is a positive. And Matt has done that for a ton of folks who are just going to always be a normal everyday CrossFitter, but they get some inspiration from what he had done. If I had to describe Matt's legacy in one word, I'd have to say timeless.
I'd say determination.
Greatness.
Resilience.
Because the way that he went about it is a way that's never going to go out of style, right? He didn't do anything flashy. He didn't use any crazy science that was cutting edge, that was new. He was always on the lookout for it. But the way that he did it, you could look back on in 50 years and say, I'm going to do that, which was work hard and make sure that you're looking for the best information at the time and going about it in a way that was measured and consistent and patient. And that will never go out of style.
I think he was always determined to be the best, to figure things out. I don't think he really so much cared what the work was or what the sacrifices were or how he would even get there, but he was determined to, and he's always figured things out.
Matt's greatness is well documented. I mean, it's not hard to look at what he achieved in his career and know that he's the greatest to ever do this. That come at a great cost and great dedication. Matt put a lot of work into being that. That isn't genetics, that isn't a, God-given ability, that's hard damn work.
He was just resilient. He kept the foot on the gas the entire time, throughout his entire career. And it was always more. It was always, I'm gonna beat you by more and more. Every year it got more dominant, and it was like, who is gonna stand a chance? And every year it was like nobody, and it was just incredible to see. It was resilient.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I think I've always very much wanted my legacy to be light. I want people to be able to look at me and like, if I can do it, like so can they. I love the feeling of like humanizing people, and that it's so easy to think that somebody else just has better genetics, just had a better upbringing or support or coaching or whatever that is. And I think those things are all excuses. And I love the humanizing fact of it all, of like, no, if they can do it, so can I, and I'll figure out a way.
I just want my legacy to be, hey, like, there was this guy that worked extremely hard, went after his goals relentlessly and didn't hold back, but he had a whole lot of fun doing it as well. And he smiled along the way at all the things that came his way, good and bad. And he just enjoyed the ride. And wherever he went with it, whatever the current took him, he was okay with that. And he just kept learning and learning and learning because he was willing to. And he was willing to go along those paths in order to master what he was trying to master, but he had fun with it.
We really need to and want to every year spend a lot of time talking about how great he was on the floor. Today, he's just as good off the floor. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to watch that play out and him apply the same hard work, determination, and grit to how he coaches and runs this business with all of us.
What makes you the happiest when somebody mentions your legacy?
Got goosebumps. Getting to work with my wife on a daily basis, and like every day I'm so impressed by, she just crushes. She's amazing at what she does. Every day I get to work with one of my best friends, O'Keefe. You know, our relationship has gone through so many different stages, but it has stayed so pure the whole time. It's just been the stages of life, the progressions, the roles everyone's had, and the fact that, you know, we got each other's backs.